What Gloria Gaither shared with the gospel music community last week was not the kind of statement anyone who has followed this ministry for decades could have seen coming. She has always been the steady presence behind Bill, the poet behind the songs, the woman whose words gave their music its soul. And for the first time in memory, she stepped forward not as a co-creator, but as a wife, speaking plainly about the man she has stood beside for more than 60 years. What she revealed about Bill's condition, about what he can and cannot do right now, moved the entire Christian music world in a way that even longtime fans were not fully prepared for. Stay with us through this video, because what surfaces around the 10-minute mark is something even devoted Gaither homecoming fans may not have known. And once you hear it, you will understand exactly why this family has carried this quietly for as long as they have. Gloria Gaither has spent more than 6 decades faithfully beside one of the most recognizable names in Southern gospel and Christian music. Most fans know her as the woman who co-wrote "Because He Lives," "He Touched Me," and "The King Is Coming," songs that have carried grieving families through funerals, lifted joyful congregations on Sunday mornings, and found lonely souls in their darkest seasons. For the millions of people who grew up watching the Gaither homecoming videos, Gloria was never simply a lyricist or Bill's wife. She was the quiet heartbeat of the whole thing, the one whose turn of phrase made the music feel true rather than just polished. Bill and Gloria married in 1962, and from the very beginning, their partnership was built on something that went deeper than shared talent. Bill carried the melody and the ministry forward, and Gloria brought the language of the soul to everything they touched. Together, they co-wrote more than 700 songs, a catalog that has reached virtually every corner of gospel music and contemporary Christian music for more than half a century, earning them a place among the most influential songwriting partnerships in the history of religious music. The Homecoming video series, which Bill launched in 1991 by gathering a group of old gospel friends in the family barn in Alexandria, Indiana, grew into something far larger than he had ever planned. Vestal Goodman, Jake Hess, Eva Mae Lefevre, and George Yuntz were among those who gathered to sing the old hymns, and the warmth of that first session sparked a movement that would eventually fill arenas across the country and produce videos that sold in the millions. Through all of it, every album, every homecoming event, every new voice Bill brought into the fold, Gloria was there. That steady presence is exactly what makes her speaking out now feel so significant to those who have watched this family across the decades. To understand why her statement landed so heavily in the gospel community, you need to go back to the song that changed everything for the Gaithers and understand the circumstances under which it was born. In 1970, Bill and Gloria were moving through one of the hardest seasons of their lives. Their son Benjamin arrived with health complications, and the world outside their door felt uncertain and frightening. Gloria sat down and wrote the words that became "Because He Lives," one of the most performed gospel songs in the history of Christian music. The lines that came from her pen, about facing tomorrow because He lives, about all fear being gone, were not written from a place of security. They came from genuine fear, and faith pressing back against that fear with everything it had. That history matters now, because the fans who know this story understand that the Gaithers have never performed faith. They have lived it, openly and without pretense. And when they have faced hard things, they have always eventually brought those hard things into the light, which is part of what made Gloria's words so moving to those who heard them. For years, people who attended homecoming concerts or watched the more recent recordings noticed something shifting. A quieter Bill, a Bill moving more carefully through the evenings, a Bill whose participation in the full sweep of what he once did with boundless energy had changed in ways fans could feel even when no one named it directly. The gospel community noticed. The questions began appearing in comment sections and on Facebook groups dedicated to the Gaither ministry. offered in the gentle, concerned tone that this audience reserves for the people they genuinely love. And the family, as families do, kept those things close. But here is the thing about Gloria Gaither. She has never been someone who turns away from hard truths. Her entire body of work as a lyricist proves that. The woman who wrote "I Am Loved" and gave voice to generations of spiritual longing has spent her adult life finding language for the things that are difficult to say. And when she finally stepped forward to address what was happening with Bill, she did it in a way that was entirely consistent with who she has always been: direct, faithful, and full of grace. There is one piece of her statement that the broader gospel and Christian music media has almost entirely overlooked, and it speaks directly to the kind of woman she is and the kind of marriage she and Bill have built. That detail reframes everything she said, and we are going to walk through it in just a moment. First, the ground beneath it matters. Bill Gaither built something that had not existed in Southern gospel before. The Gaither Vocal Band, which he founded in 1981, brought a level of vocal depth and emotional honesty to religious music that changed the genre in ways still felt today. Through the years, the group gathered some of the finest voices in Christian music under one roof. Michael English, whose tenor placed him among the most gifted vocalists in gospel music history. Mark Lowry, whose humor and heart made him one of the most beloved presences at every homecoming gathering. Guy Penrod, whose powerful baritone could fill a stadium and bring thousands of people to stillness in the same breath. David Phelps, whose operatic range and raw spiritual honesty made his performances the kind that people described to each other for years afterward. Wes Hampton, whose steady faithfulness anchored the group through seasons of change. And Russ Taff, whose gritty, spirit-driven delivery carried a generation of Christian music fans through some of their most searching moments. Each of those men was handpicked by Bill. Each of them has spoken in interviews, in recordings, in the unscripted moments that homecoming cameras sometimes caught, about what it meant to work alongside him. His patience, his musical instincts, his generosity, his genuine faith. Mark Lowry, who rarely lets a serious moment pass without finding the humor in it, has gotten quiet when asked about Bill Gaither. "He is one of the most consistent men of faith I have ever known," is how Mark put it. And the people who have spent years in that circle nod when they hear those words, because they recognize exactly what he means. That is the man Gloria is speaking about now, and that is why this moment matters as much as it does. And this is where the story takes a turn that has moved even those who thought they knew it well. Gloria's statement addressed what the family has navigated privately: Bill's declining ability to engage in the ways he once did. She spoke about aging with an honesty that was both clear-eyed and tender, acknowledging that the man who spent decades standing at the piano, greeting fans backstage long after midnight, and pouring himself into every homecoming event with what seemed like limitless energy, is now in a season of life where all of that looks different. She described watching him move more slowly, tire more quickly, and require more rest than the man she watched lead those early gatherings in the Indiana barn more than 30 years ago. What made her statement so striking was not the information itself. Aging is not a surprise, and Bill Gaither is now in his late 80s. But the honesty with which she offered it. Gloria did not reach for the kind of polished, reassuring update that public figures often use to manage concern from their audience. What she offered was closer to a love letter. She spoke about Bill the way someone speaks about a person they have watched faithfully across an entire lifetime, naming not just what he can no longer do, but what he still is. Still sharp, still caring, still moved by the music. Still the man she has known since 1962. He cannot respond to everyone the way he used to, is how she framed part of it, speaking directly to the fans who have written letters, sent cards, and reached out through social media, hoping to hear something back from Bill personally. That phrase, he cannot respond, landed with weight in the gospel community. Not because it came as a shock, but because hearing it from Gloria, in her own words, made it real in a way that quiet observation and worried speculation never could. Fellow artists responded with an outpouring that reflected how deeply this man is respected by the people who have worked beside him. Wes Hampton shared words about a man who never stopped caring about the people in the seats. David Phelps offered a reflection on Bill's influence on his own faith and ministry that drew thousands of responses from fans who felt the same. The extended Gaither homecoming family reacted quickly and with genuine warmth, and the response said everything about the culture Bill had spent a lifetime building. From the perspective of faith, and for the audience who has followed this ministry, the spiritual dimension of this story is never secondary. What Gloria shared fits a longer arc that the Gaither ministry has always been honest about. Bill and Gloria never presented faith as a shield against suffering. Because He Lives was not written by people untouched by fear. It was written by two people standing in the middle of it. The Homecoming series itself was born partly out of Bill's desire to gather the old voices before time ran out, to capture what was sacred before it slipped away. That instinct, to hold on to what matters, to honor it while you still can, runs through everything the Gaithers have ever created. What Gloria said beyond all of that is what the gospel community will carry forward. She asked fans not only to grieve, but to remember, to return to the recordings, to listen to the songs again, to understand that everything Bill poured into those moments is still there, still available, still capable of meeting people exactly where they are. The music doesn't age, she said. And for anyone who has ever sat in front of a homecoming video and felt something stir that they could not quite name, those words carry a weight that reaches well past sentiment. For those of us who have followed this family across the years, Gloria's statement asks something of us in return. It asks us to love well, to pay attention, and to not wait until it is too late to say what needs to be said. The Gaither homecoming videos carry a quality that almost no other project in Christian music has managed to replicate. They feel like a genuine gathering, like something happening in real time, like you are in the room with people who love each other and love God without any performance in it. Bill Gaither created that atmosphere, and Gloria sustained it with her words and her presence through every season. Gospel and religious music today sometimes struggles to find that same quality. The production values are higher, the stages are larger, the streaming numbers are far bigger. But what the homecoming era captured has proven very difficult to recreate, and what Gloria's statement reminds us is that what made it special was never a formula. It was people. Specific people at specific moments in their lives, bringing whatever they had and offering it without reservation. If you have followed this ministry since the early homecoming days, you understand exactly what that means. You remember where you were the first time you heard David Phelps sing "End of the Beginning." You remember watching Vestal Goodman's handkerchief go up in the air. You remember the feeling that something holy was unfolding in whatever living room or church fellowship hall you happened to be watching from. Gloria's words are an invitation to hold those memories with gratitude, not only with longing, and to recognize that the people who shaped our faith in Christian music and religious worship deserve to know what they have meant, while that can still be communicated. There is one more part of this story that most people have not connected yet, and it reframes Gloria's statement in a way that makes it even more meaningful. Gloria Gaither has always been, by design and by temperament, the less visible half of one of gospel music's most enduring partnerships. Bill was the one at the piano, leading the room, making the introductions, building the relationships across generations of Southern gospel and Christian music artists. Gloria was the one writing the words that gave those relationships their lasting expression in her books, her poetry, her liner notes, and her lyrics. She accepted that arrangement as her genuine calling, never seeming to need the spotlight that so naturally found Bill. And yet the people who worked closely with the Gaither ministry across those decades will tell you that Gloria's influence on the theological depth of the catalog cannot be separated from its lasting power. Michael English, who sang with the Gaither vocal band through one of its most celebrated periods in the early 1990s, has spoken about the way her lyrics shaped his own understanding of faith and Christian devotion. Russ Taff, whose personal journey through addiction and recovery became one of the more remarkable stories in Christian music, has pointed to the Gaither songs as ones that met him in his darkest seasons, carrying the kind of spiritual honesty that reaches people who have stopped trusting anything polished. Linda Randall, whose warmth and powerful contralto have made her one of the most beloved figures in the Homecoming family, has spoken about Gloria as someone who understands the spiritual weight of finding exactly the right word and putting it in exactly the right place. That is the woman who stepped forward to speak about Bill. Not a publicist, not a spokesperson, not a carefully managed statement from a media team. His wife of more than 60 years, the co-author of the songs that carried a generation of believers through their hardest seasons, speaking plainly about what their life together looks like right now. And that plainness, that willingness to say the true thing without dressing it in comfort it does not quite earn, is the most Gloria Gaither thing she could possibly have done. What comes next for Bill and Gloria is something the gospel music and Christian music community will watch with the kind of care that only comes from decades of genuine connection. The Homecoming series, now more than 30 years old, has always changed shape, new voices entering, beloved figures stepping back, the whole thing shifting as the people at its center age and evolve and carry new seasons of their faith forward. Bill understood this better than anyone. He spent a career gathering artists because he knew that moments pass, that voices age, that the window for capturing something true is always narrower than it looks. What Gloria's statement leaves open, and what she did not address directly, is what the Gaither ministry looks like without Bill at the center of it in the way he has always been. That question belongs to the gospel community now, and rightly so, because it matters. The artists Bill believed in before anyone else did, the stages he built for voices that might otherwise have gone unheard, the spirit he cultivated in those barn gatherings and arena concerts. All of it becomes a question of legacy. Not because the legacy is uncertain, but because the people who carry it forward will need to decide what it means to do so faithfully. Whatever comes next, fans who have followed this ministry for decades know one thing. Bill Gaither's story, and Gloria's story woven through it, is not finished. The music is still out there. The recordings are still finding new listeners in search of genuine religious faith and worship expressed in song. And the words Gloria wrote more than 50 years ago about facing tomorrow because he lives still carry the same weight they carried the morning she first put them down on paper. If this story moved you, the next video will as well. We have been following the individual journeys of several Gaither vocal band members through the years, and what came out of those stories is just as unexpected and just as worth your time.